Well, good morning. In Washington this fall, the Democrats took back the presidency but failed to seize control of the Senate and actually lost a little ground in the House of Representatives. While here in Massachusetts, Democrats' sights are set on the one power base they do not already control, the governor's office. Let's talk about what's up with the Mass Democratic Party with Gus Bickford, just reelected to a second term as chairman of the state Democratic Party. Gus, congratulations and welcome.
John, thank you, and thank you for having me.
So I want to let our viewers know, by the way, we've reached out repeatedly over the past few years to invite Republican Party Chairman Jim Lyons to sit for an interview here, as all his predecessors have done, but he has declined every time. Okay, Gus, last week, you issued a statement praising local cities and towns that have tightened their pandemic restrictions on business and social activity beyond what the state has called for. And you wrote this, I'm going to quote from your statement. Just as Donald Trump deferred responsibility for management of the pandemic to individual states, leading to a disjointed and deadly response, Charlie Baker is taking a page from the Trump playbook and leaving it to the 351 municipalities to manage the crisis on their own. Baker's approach shows an acceptance of the damage that resulted from the Trump strategy that he is following, end quote. Well, Baker's been widely criticized by private sector businesses for being too restriction happy. He's been sued by right-wingers echoing Trump's rhetoric. And he's had Trump-quoting protesters gather outside his home. In what parallel universe is he following the Trump playbook?
In the fact that he's actually not following science. One of the things that, I've been accused of by the governor and other people is that we do too much prejudging. But one of the things that we can now do in a very sad fashion is look back to what has happened. It was almost a year ago, 11 months ago, when it was put forward that we needed to have mask wearing. And we needed to, provide that as defense against this unknown virus. And if we had decided to do that early on, and if the government and the president had decided to do War Powers Act to, put more funds and so we could have PPE for our first responders and more equipment for our emergency rooms, we would have been way ahead of where we are now, which is over 300,000 deaths, which is a record that's broken, and the number of people that is dying every day is more than died in 9/11.
But Baker's response has been quite different, hasn't it?
No, I won't allow. He has not been willing to actually have a backbone, recognize it. In Massachusetts, people go over town lines. So to allow it to be just a town by town strategy, we really needed to get ahead of this. We needed to move forward and understand that no, it's not popular, but lives will be saved. And we have proven that when we've closed down. And by no means does anyone want to make that decision. Okay, I agree with him. No one wants to make the decision, but we hired him. We elected him to make that decision, and he is decided to abandon us and not do that.
So what are you saying, that he should have us in statewide lockdown?
He should have us in stronger positioning so that all of the communities are following the same thing. So statewide lockdown might be going a little too far, but when it comes to indoor dining, gyms, casinos, we should have moved on that months ago.
How about the schools? Should he have shut the schools altogether and not left it to every city and town?
Well, the governor has a horrible track record when it comes to schools. Let's remember when he first came in, he wanted to put much more funding into charter schools. He needs to provide the revenues for the public schools for what they need to do. Because one of the things we'll learn, especially as we learn about the failure rates gaining, is that there is not enough structure at home. So there might be some individuals that need to go to a place of learning so they get the structure. That being said, there needs to be leadership from the top so people are doing it the same way across the state, and they're provided the revenues to be able to achieve the goals that we need them to achieve.
All right.